Hello, Gavin here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about 3 reasons why reading sheet music can still be so valuable to musicians. Reading sheet music is a skill that, mostly for guitarists and bass players, but really in recent years, has been viewed as a skill that's not necessary. And it's true, no one needs to read sheet music. This day and age there's so many other options, so it's not a necessary skill, but it can still be so valuable as a musician to be able to read charts. So we're going to look at 3 reasons today why it can still be so necessary and so valuable. And number 1 is it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt your playing at all to be able to read charts. You'll never suffer as a musician by being able to read sheet music, and it'll never hold you back as a musician. What you might find is that it opens more doors to being able to do more gigs. I'll give you an example. In the session work I've done in my local scene over the years, 90% of the work does not require that I read sheet music. And I know that doesn't really fight my case too well, but it still means that 10% of the work I've done has required that I read sheet music. So that's 10% of the work I've done that I wouldn't have got if I couldn't read. It doesn't sound like much, but that could be quite a well-paying gig that you're losing. It could be recurring work that you're losing. So it's worthwhile bearing that in mind. And something else is that of the 90% of the work that didn't require me to read sheet music, I still ended up using sheet music in the process. Because quite often, particularly with originals work, if you show up to the gig, if you show up to the first rehearsal even, and you've not been given the songs ahead of time and you're learning the songs with the band in the rehearsal room, and that's quite a common situation. They might give you chord charts, they might tell you the chords for the songs, and you might take wee notes on a notepad during the rehearsal. I've done that plenty of times. And in a lot of cases, that's enough that by the time you get home, it'll jog your memory when you try and play the songs again. And without fail, if you go home from a rehearsal, you will forget some of the work. It's just impossible to remember everything. It's your first rehearsal with a band, there's a lot going on, you will forget things. But what if there's a part in one of the songs that's a little bit different? There's a riff or a bit with a funny time signature that you need to nail. That has to be so accurate when you perform it. You might forget that by the time you get home, and that's where having a pad of manuscript paper in your bag could be useful. I just find that I keep one of these in my gig bag for when that happens, because you can accurately write down what they're asking you to play. So for these reasons, I think it's super valuable if you're a working musician to still be able to read sheet music, just for situations like that when they come up. Now don't get me wrong, this is not a way to be me bashing tablature. It's a great tool and plenty of people use it, but there's a major part missing from tablature that if you can't read the associated sheet music, you're not getting the full use out of the tablature. And that's rhythm notation. You see, tablature doesn't contain rhythm notation. It'll have lines above it. You'll find that yes, there's the tablature line there, but you've also got the sheet music above it. And also, kudos if you can work out what song that is. But as you see, it's just not got the rhythm notation included in the tablature. And there's another example of this that I don't have on the table with me, but I'll flash that up on the screen now, where they'll put the rhythm notation below the tablature. So no sheet music in the traditional sense, but still rhythm notation to show you the timing. Because the tablature is just showing you a photograph of the neck, really. It's showing you a photograph of where the notes you're playing are on the fretboard. I mean, that's a great tool. It's very usable, very useful. But it doesn't give you the timing. To me, tablature without the rhythm notation is like reading a paragraph where no one's used any punctuation or spaces. All the information is there, but you have to piece it together and you have to figure out the timing. And Obviously, if you know the song, then that's not so difficult with a tablature. But what if, one, it's a new song that you're being required to play, or if it's a really difficult song with some weird timings involved? Even having the tablature there might not make things that simple for figuring it out. But being able to read at the very least rhythm notation, so not worrying about the notes on the lines, just reading the rhythm notation so you can see whether it's an eighth note, a quarter note, things like that, that could be enough to make it possible for you to play something from tablature. So that in itself is a valuable skill to learn, and I would say that even if you're not interested in reading traditional sheet music properly, being able to read rhythm notation will just improve even reading tablature or taking notes on things so much and make it so much easier to work with. This principle also could be a good gateway into learning to read sheet music. If you learn to read tablature and you can read the rhythm notation above it, gradually build on that, you might find that one day you start adding in the notes. So you're never holding yourself back, you're never making it difficult for yourself, you're always just adding a little bit here and there. And that's actually something I would recommend if you're looking to get into reading sheet music. Start with tablature and learn to read rhythm notation associated with it. Then once you get comfortable with that, start looking at the notes. Start trying to figure out what the notes are, because that's actually the other advantage of being able to read sheet music. If you can read the notes on the sheet music, you're actually developing your knowledge of the fingerboard. When you read sheet music, you're thinking in that note is a C, that note's a B, whatever. Then you have to think about where you play that on the fretboard or on the keybed if it's a piano you're reading sheet music for, or mandolin, violin, whatever. It doesn't really matter what instrument you're talking about. If you're reading sheet music, you're always thinking about what note you're playing and where you're playing it on the instrument. Tablature just talks in what fret to play on, things like that. While it's still valuable and it's still usable, you actually develop your fingerboard knowledge better by reading the sheet music. So that's just something else to think about if you've been weighing up learning to read sheet music. And the final benefit of being able to read sheet music is all sheet music is available at your disposal. Yes, is a book for the country singer Chris Stapleton. Really big fan of his work. Really big fan of country music. Probably not so obvious from this channel, but love country music. But anyway, back on topic. When I read a piece of music like this, I can play this on my bass. Now this, as you see in the corner, says piano, vocal and guitar. No mention of bass guitar whatsoever. There's no bass tab. There's no specific bass part. What you'll find is you have the piano part, left and right hand, so bass clef, treble clef. In fact, this one's bass clef and bass clef, really bad example. But down here, bass clef, treble clef. And you'll often find that when it's written like this and there was a bass player on the recording, the bass line will be included in the left hand bass clef part. So right off the bat there, I can figure out the bass line for the song by reading that part. Sorted. If I just want to learn the bass line for the song, done. But if I want to go further than that, I have, if I go to the next part, obviously the left and right hand, but I do also have the vocal melody. So as an example, I have the guitar part on the right hand, the bass part on the left hand, and the vocal melody. I could do a completely instrumental arrangement of that on my own if I wanted to. All the information's there. So there's a creative use for being able to read sheet music. To me, that's only ever a benefit. That's another instance where being able to read sheet music has given me something else fun that I can do. And to me, that's the benefit of anything with music, whether it be learning other techniques, learning to read sheet music, or learning other instruments. It's all about expanding your knowledge and having more fun, isn't it? First up, we have the AB Guide to Music Theory. This is the ABRSM theory book, and it starts right from the beginning and goes quite deep actually. It really goes quite far for this one book. There's actually a second book, the blue one, which goes even further. So definitely worth checking that out. Great book. And for the bass players, the Real Book. Now There's a much deeper discussion about whether you should be a real book player or not, and really that's a discussion for a totally different video. We're not going to get into that today. But from a point of view of learning to read sheet music, these are great because one, it's all old jazz pieces, which means there's a good chance that you'll not know how to play these right off the bat. So you could start by learning to sight read pieces you don't know, so you're having to really think about your timing and reading the piece, not just playing it from a vague idea of how it should sound. But they're also well-known pieces, so if you wanted to, you could find them online and play along to them. These books are great for transcribing, and to be honest with you, if you get involved in the jazz scene, you'll need one of these for going to sessions. These are a gig bag essential if you're going to get into the jazz scene. You need to have one of these. Jam sessions, these will get called upon all the time. So they're a great tool to have if you're interested in getting into that, but also just from a sheet music and sight reading practice tool, fantastic. So highly recommend looking at those as well. And they don't have to be expensive either. You don't have to have one of the authentic old ones, the illegal ones. The reproduced ones, like this one from Hal Leonard, are fantastic. So definitely worth checking out. So it's no secret really that from my perspective, I think it's a great skill to work on, great skill to have, and it's only ever going to expand upon and make your playing more enjoyable. But I'd love to hear what you think on the matter. And I'd also love to hear what tools, if you've gone into reading sheet music, what tools you use to learn to read sheet music. I think it'd be great for everybody to see what everyone's been using to work on their playing. So I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. And until next time, thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this, please like and comment and subscribe. And until next time, thank you very much for watching. Keep working on those bass faces.